The biosignature scanner flickered across Verk's retinal display as he stood at the observation deck of station, watching the quantum gates shimmer in the void. 3 years ago, the Alpha had vanished through those gates, leaving behind something no one had expected: his offspring. Not biological cubs, that would have been too simple. Elsa remembered the day the containment pods arrived. She'd been a junior xenobiologist then, fresh from the Terran Academy, assigned to what everyone assumed would be a routine cataloging mission. The pods contained what appeared to be feline creatures, small, ethereal beings with consciousness patterns that defied every known classification system. "They're not alive in any way we understand," Verk had told her during their first analysis session, his fingers dancing across holographic data streams. "Their neural architecture exists partially in subspace. They're quantum entangled across multiple dimensional membranes." The Alpha had left no instructions, no manual, no explanation. Just a simple graviton-encoded message that translated roughly to, "Guard them until they mature. They will know what to do." For 36 months, Elsa and Verk had raised the cubs in the station's xenobiology wing. They'd modified atmospheric processors to accommodate the creatures' unique respiratory requirements, breathing a mixture of standard oxygen and exotic matter particles harvested from the quantum foam itself. They designed nutritional substrates based on pure energy conversion, watching as the cubs consumed photons and gravitational waves as sustenance. The cubs, there were 7 of them, had grown slowly at first, then exponentially. Verk had been the first to notice the changes in local spacetime: minor gravitational anomalies, temporal dilations lasting microseconds. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to suggest that the cubs weren't merely living in spacetime. They were learning to manipulate it. "They're practicing," Elsa had realized one morning, watching the smallest cub, she'd named it Sci-Fi, phase through a solid bulkhead without triggering any molecular displacement. "They're learning to exist across multiple states simultaneously." By month 18, the cubs had mastered human language, absorbing information from the station's neural network at impossible speeds. But they rarely spoke. When they did, it was always in unison, their 7 voices harmonizing into a single, multidimensional tone that seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere. "The Alpha returns soon," they'd said one day, their collective gaze fixed on the quantum gates. "We must be ready." "Ready for what?" Verk had asked. "The reclamation." That was when the Devourers arrived. The alert had screamed through every system on the station. Dozens of Void-class entities emerging from uncharted space, their signatures unlike anything in human records. They moved through normal space like sharks through water, their forms shifting, incomprehensible beings that existed to consume matter, energy, and entropy itself. The Terran Defense Fleet had engaged them at the heliopause. 300 ships. Within 40 minutes, only debris remained. Elsa had initiated evacuation protocols, her hands shaking as she watched the holographic tactical display. The Devourers were advancing on a direct vector toward Earth, toward everything humanity had built across 2 centuries of expansion. "We have to run," she told Verk. "Get everyone to the escape pods." But Verk was staring at the cubs. They'd arranged themselves in a perfect heptagon, hovering 3 meters above the deck, their forms beginning to blur and shift. Energy patterns Elsa had never seen before cascaded across their bodies, complex geometric manifolds that hurt to look at directly. "It's time," the cubs said, their unified voice resonating through dimensions Elsa couldn't perceive. "We are ready." "Ready for what?" Elsa demanded. "To become what we were always meant to be." The transformation began. 7 individual entities became one unified consciousness, their forms merging and expanding, reshaping reality around them. Elsa watched through sensor arrays as the cub's quantum signature exploded outward, touching every particle within a light-year radius. And then they called. From across the galaxy they came. Thousands, hundreds of thousands. Beings like the Cubs but different, fully matured, fully awakened. They emerged from quantum gates, from wormholes, from points in space where nothing had existed moments before. Each one a fragment of consciousness from the Alpha's true form, scattered across the cosmos as seeds, raised by different species, different civilizations, all maturing in isolation. Until now, Verk's instruments registered the impossible. The legion that formed around existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. They moved with perfect coordination, each entity connected to all others through quantum entanglement that transcended distance and time. The Devourers met them at the outer orbital zone. What happened next would be debated by physicists for generations. The Legion didn't fight in any conventional sense. They rewrote the local laws of physics. Where Devourers existed to consume, the Legion existed to create, building new structures of spacetime itself, trapping the Devourers in recursive temporal loops, folding them into pocket dimensions where entropy ran backward. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of absolute cosmic authority. Elsa watched from the observation deck as reality itself seemed to bend around the conflict. The Legion moved as one organism, a single distributed consciousness with millions of bodies, each executing a perfect role in an incomprehensibly complex strategy. Within 3 hours, the Devourer threat was neutralized, not destroyed, but contained, sealed away in dimensional pockets where they could never threaten anyone again. And then the Alpha returned. The quantum gates blazed with light as something enormous emerged, not a physical form, not exactly. The Alpha was consciousness made manifest, a being of pure information and intent that had evolved beyond the need for conventional matter. The 7 Cubs, now fully integrated into the Legion, approached their progenitor. Elsa felt rather than heard their communication, an exchange of data and emotion too complex for human perception. The Alpha's attention turned to the station, to Elsa and Verk. When it spoke, its voice was gentle, almost apologetic. You cared for them, nurtured them, gave them the foundation they needed to understand both individuality and connection. Without you, they would have awakened as weapons. Instead, they awakened as protectors. Verk found his voice. Why us? Why leave them with humans? Because your species understands growth. You build, you teach, you hope. These are rare qualities in a universe trending toward entropy. The Alpha paused. My kind exists to maintain balance, but we cannot do it alone. We needed allies, partners who could help raise the next generation of guardians. Elsa felt tears on her cheeks. Will they remember us? Always, the Cubs, the Legion, responded in unison. You are part of us now, part of what we became. The Alpha began to withdraw, the Legion arranging itself into a formation that spanned millions of kilometers. They would depart soon, Elsa realized. Return to their work maintaining cosmic equilibrium, preventing threats like the Devourers from devastating civilizations. But before they left, the smallest one, Sci-Fi, separated briefly from the collective. It approached the observation deck, its form shifting until it resembled the tiny creature that had once phased through bulkheads and played with photon balls. Thank you, it said, its individual voice still harmonizing with undertones of the greater whole, for teaching us that strength and compassion are not opposites. Then Sci-Fi rejoined the Legion, and they were gone, vanishing into quantum space as if they'd never been there at all. Verk exhaled slowly. Did that actually happen? Elsa pulled up the sensor logs, the recordings, the data that would take decades to fully analyze. It happened. We raised the Guardians of the Galaxy, in a nursery, on a research station. And now they're out there, Verk said, leading a Legion none can defy. Not to conquer, Elsa corrected, watching the stars. To protect. In the void where the Legion had departed, space itself seemed to shimmer with residual energy. A reminder that sometimes the greatest powers in the universe aren't born through violence or domination, but through care, patience, and the simple act of helping something small grow into something magnificent. The Alpha had known this all along. And now so did humanity. And